Howdy ho and welcome to Rauta's Non-Metal Sunday. Time to dig a little bit of my backlog to find something very non-metallic, this time actually very electronic. Now, many people know that synthwave and retrowave, all kind of waves from the 1980s have come back already quite a few years ago. I mean, we have those bigger names like Perturbator and Carpenter Brut, not to mention other names, smaller names. Be it about retrowave, synthwave, even dungeon synth. Lots of stuff has been going on for the past 10 years and more in the terms of electronic music, which is flirting very much with the 1980s. But these are not the only styles that are doing comeback. Obviously, dungeon synth more about being 1990s, and these retrowave stuff being more about 1980s. But there is more, and one of those releases is something that I'm holding in my hand as a vinyl version. This one is Highway Superstar with the album called Take My Time. Now, I was thinking prior to listening to this one that this could be, or should be, would be a retrowave release because everything from the colors and chosen style here is just what it indicates. Now, there are 9 tracks in total, which you can probably see here, but this one seems to feature some vocal parts, which are there mentioned. Now, inside this nice looking gatefold, there is basically nothing more than just kind of a digital art with very, very 1980s aesthetics. And this is a co-release by Essential Purification and Rosso Corsa. Now, Electronic Purification is known for its colored vinyls with its synthwave and stuff, but this is very classic, just black vinyl, quite heavy, you know. It doesn't really bend and doesn't feel cheap. Quite the contrary, feels like this is pure gold in cardboard and vinyl, of course. Now, there are no lyrics or other sheets inside, so this is just what it is. Everything you see or can read is right here. So there are no lyrics included, even though there are some parts with vocals and all. So that's it. Looks nice, but how does it play? Now that's the question, obviously. From the band's Bandcamp side, you can pretty much find the basic information. You can even buy this album digitally, and you will see that there are these 10 tracks featuring 1 remix and 3 songs with a featured artist. And there you will find information like these lyrics, which are not included here for some reason, and then everything here mentioned like 180 grams heavyweight vinyl and all. Now, music-wise, this is being labeled as 80s, chill wave, electro, electronic, Italo, new wave, outrun. Well, I think those are pretty much describing the music, because this is not exactly the type of synthwave like mentioned, but more about having these kind of dance beats with some of the vocals, with some of the electronic parts, which remind me a lot of 1980s movies. It might be an action movie, action comedy movies, maybe not drama movies, and most definitely not some kind of a movie with lots of suspension and war and violence, but more about, you know, the kind of a happy tunes place, a little bit of uplifting moments and moods, if you will. And this could be very much be a soundtrack to that kind of a music. But there is something that really makes this sound like, follower rather than leader. I mean, some of the parts here seem like this is very, very modern, even though it kind of fools you very nicely that it's actually 1980s release. But let's be honest about it, it's a 2013 release with 2018 reissue. Now, where you can actually notice that is that those songs would have vocals, you know, whether it's these parts with singing and all, you know, 1980s, often they had this rather big name who, you know, then went to do these songs, you know, the title songs for a movie or series, and those songs became somewhat memorable, somewhat like a hit song, you know. And obviously nowadays those songs are met with nostalgia, you know, even though if you don't find a certain song that much likable, but you find it very relatable because, you know, it just pushes the right buttons, takes you back to your childhood or teenage years, and as such it has this certain kind of feeling. There are lots of songs. I'm not gonna do name dropping. I probably couldn't even mention some particular example right out of bat, I would probably think about it or at least Google about it. But there's songs which, you can hear on a radio and then right at the very moment you're gone back to 1984 or something like that. And suddenly you are in some Los Angeles beach with a Pontiac or whatever, and you have those girls with their bikinis and guys with their shades on and all that stuff. It's like taking you to this warm place, quite literally even. But this is where Highway Superstar is not, succeeding. I mean, it basically has all the elements, but it kind of proves to be fake because it doesn't have this nostalgic feeling. It doesn't have these, big stars who are doing, then again, these vocals. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's just something that you kind of realize when you're listening to the music. Now, because this is more about danceable music and kind of a pop music rather than kind of a synthwave, it obviously depends on your musical taste, how well you're gonna just take the ride here. Now, I personally don't have issue with 1980s pop music, but I'm not really a fan either. So for me, these danceable beats are kind of like, driving me away versus the kind of a synthwave, which is just, taking me on that Pontiac ride. And as such, I don't know who to recommend to. Maybe people who are very much thirsty about 1980s pop music, electronic beats and all that stuff. Because this kind of has nice groove. It's a very nicely sounding album, but it's just not pushing the right buttons for me. So it's quite okay, and it really is, but not something that I would go crazy about. Obviously, you want to decide for yourself. If you think this kind of stuff is just horrible, don't waste your time on it. But if you have a soft spot for 1980s stuff, click, start listening, and I hope you enjoy it. Looking forward for your comments and opinions. Meanwhile, take care and enjoy your Easter.